Whenever you lose any game ever, it's really easy to blame teammates or opponents or luck or any number of other things beyond your control. I do this all the time in Marvel Rivals. Every loss is because I had an idiot teammate or someone on the enemy team was smurfing. Now, of course, all of my losses in Marvel Rivals are not my fault, but many of my losses in EDH are. This is what I want to talk about today. Your losses in Commander. Why they happen, how they can be avoided, how the bracket system ties into that, and what we can learn from your losses. But first, if you're looking to buy any cards or products, try using Cool Stuff Inc. If you use my code TTM at checkout, you will get a discount and it supports the channel. Thanks to Cool Stuff Inc. for sponsoring the video. So, I don't actually know why or how you lose games of Commander. I'm a voice inside your computer, and I don't know who you are. If I took a random guess, it's that you don't play removal or waste your removal. But honestly, that's an educated guess. So instead, I want to try and present a framework on how you can identify your own losses. Knowing that you did lose a game is easy, but finding out when and why is a little different. You see, when you lose is not actually the last turn of the game. It could be, but not always. You might have been in an unwinnable position well before the game actually completed. And why you lose is a bit more complicated than it might seem as well. Like if you lost to a large number of creatures, the reason their board was like that could have been because of something that happened at a much earlier turn. Let's focus on when for now. When you lost is going to be the turning point of the game. This could be a lot of different things and might be a little difficult to unpack when you're sitting at the end of a long game. I'll start with a simple example. Let's say you cast a Beast Within on a large creature that was attacking you. Then, next turn, a player cast their final combo piece and won. The turning point was when you spent your removal, because now that means your shields are down and the combo player recognizes that and plays their last piece to win. Or the turning point could be even before that. It could be when the player with the large creature chose to attack you. That person failing to recognize the combo pieces and failing to pressure the combo player then was the turning point of the game. Here's another simple example. If a player gets to untap with something game-winning, like a mana doubler, even if they don't win on that turn, the fact that they tapped out for a mana doubler and they survived to actually untap and use all that mana might have been what led them to win however many turns down the road. Because you don't always talk with your opponents at the end of games, it can sometimes be a little tricky to actually figure out exactly where the turning point was. But it's something I want you to think about the next time you lose a game. Where did things start to actually go wrong? I'd say untapping with big powerful cards, wasting removal, or just poor threat assessment in general are the biggest turning points of a game. But of course, there are dozens of reasons a game can have a massive shift, so don't think of that list as all-encompassing. Now, once you're able to figure out when the game ended, what that turning point is, try to evaluate why that turning point happened. If your opponent untaps with a game-winning enchantment because you couldn't remove it, then why that turning point happened is likely you didn't have enchantment removal at the right time. If your opponent bursts you down with a bunch of combat tricks, then why might be simply you didn't know what that type of deck would do. And then the turning point was you not holding up blockers. Why will often come down to knowledge or interaction. Like that you didn't have removal at the time, or you didn't know that there was a combo lurking around the corner. Sometimes why can be pretty difficult to evaluate. If I cast a Wrath and somebody hit me with free interaction to stop it, and that was the turning point of the game, the fact that I didn't have a Wrath for their board, I might be able to say why I lost is because I didn't bait out the counterspell first, I didn't wait an extra turn before casting the Wrath, but it's pretty difficult to predict things like free interaction. Which brings me to the problem with evaluating the problem. You see, the issue in Magic is you can always chop up some losses to luck. Many times when I talk about playing removal in videos, people often comment, what if that person has a second threat or protection, or you don't draw the removal? All of these do not invalidate the need for removal. It just means sometimes your opponent got the perfect hand and you couldn't beat it. It is a card game after all, so it's bound to happen eventually. You can't win every game, even if you play perfectly. So when evaluating when and why, sometimes you do have to understand that there was no why, you just got unlucky and you lost. And because of that luck factor, one game might not mean much about your deck. If your list wasn't able to find artifact removal one time, it doesn't mean you need to add 10 pieces of artifact removal, but the more you do this exercise, the clearer the picture becomes. If you had 10 games where you lost to a board wipe when you were one turn away from winning, that might mean your deck is currently weak against board wipes. Most lists will have some type of weakness. By the nature of the game, all of your aggro control combo lists implicitly lean one way or another, and it's impossible to make a deck that is resilient to everything. But sometimes, if your list leans one way a lot, it might have a lot of weaknesses. Okay, so we've done this finding the turning point and evaluating why that turning point happens exercise many times. Now, we've identified a problem, it's time to solve it. Usually, this is rather simple actually. If you are constantly losing to one thing, that can be remedied in 3 ways. As an example, let's say the turning point is constantly you getting hit by a board wipe and not being able to recover. So we know the problem is wraths ruining your game plan. We can solve this by playing cards that protect your board. So a heroic intervention, for example, or counter magic if you're in blue. Simply increasing the number of those protection spells in your lists will lower your chances of getting beat by a wrath. But let's say you already have multiple of these effects in your deck, but just never in hand when you need one. To solve this problem, card draw is almost always the answer. Increasing the amount of card draw in your deck is how you can make sure you find the answer at the right time. Luckily, these days, there's a lot of card draw in most colors, so you can easily add some to almost any list. Now, the third method of solving the problem has nothing to do with the cards in your deck. When you cast the spell, has a massive impact on the game. And sometimes, even if you have protection and card draw, you might lose to wrath number 2 or 3. You could be overcommitting to the board. You dump your hand really quickly, get slammed with the first board wipe, and then you never come back. The solution is to play safe. Don't cast both of your 3 drops on turn 6, maybe just one, and then attack the person who has the wrath. Try to see if you can force it out before committing the rest of your hand. Sometimes just changing your playstyle can make a huge impact on your deck. But how much removal, protection, card draw, yada yada, should I add to my deck, I hear you ask. As much as I know people want to hear me say a concrete answer like, you need 3 wraths and 8 spot removal pieces and blah blah blah, I cannot give a solid answer to this. I don't know your deck, or meta, or playstyle. Ultimately, the amount of anything you need depends on your deck. It's hard for me to perfectly evaluate any list because of all of these unknown variables. Even when I have the deck in front of me, like with patron deck reviews, I don't know the type of decks they play against. Sometimes I will suggest protection for wraths, and the patron will tell me their playgroup is very light on board wipes, and they don't feel like they need the protection. The number of tutors or recursion you have in your list will also affect the amount of different things you need to play. Or if your commander fits a specific role, then that also factors into how much you need to have in your list because you always have access to, whatever it is your commander does. Is the card draw or removal repeatable, or are these one-off effects? Those are all big factors that make it really difficult for me to just throw a number out there and say, yeah, if you have this much removal, you'll be fine. That's why this video is a framework on how to evaluate your games of Commander. Once you review your games and get used to figuring out what the turning point was and why that happens, it's really easy for you to then say, well, I'm unable to draw enough cards. I just run out of gas and get grinded out. Maybe I need to draw more cards, add more card draw to your list. It really becomes a lot more clear when you do this. And it is possible to have too much removal, too much card draw, etc., etc. Sometimes your list can feel like it's spinning its wheels, where you draw into like spot removal and then more spot removal, and then that's kind of it. You don't actually further any game plan and you fall behind. In that case, you might want to cut removal or card draw and add more things to pressure your opponents to push towards whatever your win con is. Ultimately, tuning an EDH deck is really more of an art than a science. It's going to take a little bit of trial and error to actually get things right. One last thing I want to talk about when evaluating lists is to tie that back to the bracket system. There are a lot of complaints I see online about brackets. People talk about how one deck they saw should have been in a higher bracket and how that player lied and etc. etc. Now, I don't want to say nobody ever in the history of EDH has lied about the power of their deck. I'm sure it has happened. It might have even happened to you. But I just don't think it's very common. Instead of just assuming that they lied about the power of their deck, let's evaluate these games. Maybe they did win with a combo in bracket 3, but was it because their deck is too strong? Or was there a key moment, a turning point? Maybe a place where they cast a tutor and players chose to tap out instead of holding up removal. Maybe the why the game turned that way is because players didn't recognize signs of a combo, and they very well could have held up removal, stop the combo player, and attack them for lethal. It could have been that a deck was able to go Soul Ring into 4-drop into something else big, and maybe that feels like a really strong deck. But the turning point was turn 1 Soul Ring into exactly one of their most powerful game changers, and we can really just chalk that up to variance, since Soul Ring was their only fast mana, and they really only had the one powerful game changer in their list anyway. That's just a lucky draw. In the same vein, if you think your deck is bracket 3, that might be technically true because of game changers. But it does not mean your list is well tuned or efficient. You might really be lacking in card draw or win cons or any other number of things. It's really hard to get a commander deck working on the first go. It might take some iterations, or maybe your theme is simply too slow and jank, and dropping down a bracket might be the right call. The bracket system is excellent as a baseline. You get a baseline understanding in bracket 2 that there are no 2-card combos, nothing from the game changers list, and no chaining of extra turns. But that does not mean a pile of random cards can compete. Bracket 2 lists still have synergy and game plans and are designed to win the game. Likewise, when you bring a list up to bracket 3, a lot of people just add game changers, thinking that that means anything. And although some game changers can swing decks here or there in the occasional game, it doesn't mean you actually upgraded your deck's game plan. If your deck lacked card draw, adding in a bunch of random game changers probably isn't going to power up your list that much. Your list having the correct ratios of removal, draw, and finishers is a much more important thing to look at when you're determining the power level of a deck and how well it can execute its game plan, which is something that is impossible to incorporate into brackets. It is far too complicated and nuanced, which is why I talk about it in video essays that are much longer like this. And it's just something you need to learn for yourself, how tuned your list is. I genuinely think if you are able to focus on the turning point of a game and evaluate the when and why a game ended, you will be able to much more clearly and efficiently evaluate your own deck. You have the ability to win most games if you play perfectly, which isn't impossible, but you can always improve. The more you look at how games went, the more you learn when you should have sandbagged, when you should have pressured a person's life total. And the better you get at that, the better your decks are going to perform, whether or not you change any cards in them. You also have the ability to make your deck win against almost anything within its bracket. Sometimes that just takes a bit of tuning and learning what your deck is missing. It's really easy to blame other players and the bracket system or anything else for your losses. But in reality, the only constant in every game you lose is you. And you are the only thing you have the power to change. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my tier 3 patrons whose names you see here. If you want to be in the credits or check out any of the other perks, click the link below.